That's okay. Okay, back to me. I know John knows me. I don't know how many other people in this room know me, but I am not an archaeologist. I'm not an historian. I am a scientist and an engineer who drifted into genealogy and gravestones back in 1996. In 1996, I began transcribing gravestones in County Laois. And between 1996 and 1998, I transcribed, we'll say maybe 2/3 of Laois gravestones for every stone that was pre-1901. That's what we were advised back then, is go 1901. At the time, I was a lecturer in UCD. By 2001, I opened up a website, and the website gets 1,000 visitors a day minimum. I own a very large genealogy mail list, one of the largest in the world. And in the last few years, I have discovered Facebook, and I'm very noisy on that. Now, this morning, I've let somebody else look after my website for the last few years because I was sick. And this morning, I counted how many graveyards I actually have on my website from Ireland, and I have 122 graveyards on the website. Besides that, I actually am preparing a list to try and put photographs of churches or the remnants of every church in any graveyard I've been to onto the internet. And my list so far is 211 sites long. Now, I have 5 computers, and I've only worked with 2 of them, so I don't know where the ones between 122 and 211, they're on other computers. What I want to talk to you about today is not really what I was going to talk about when I said I would give this talk. I said I would talk about the graveyards of Ossory. Laois and Kilkenny are my 2 big counties. I began with County Laois, and I have 61 Laois graveyards on the internet, and I have 40 Kilkenny graveyards on the internet. And what I have done that I don't think anybody here has done before is in 1996, between 1996 and 1998, I had a pen and paper. I had discovered the gravestone transcriptions of Richard Henshaw in the Cork Archaeological and Historical Society while I was up in the research section of the library one day in UCD. And from the time I discovered those papers, that was it. Every spare minute I had, up I went to the library, I'd sit on the ground and I'd read through these things. And his transcriptions are fantastic. That he has the transcription, he's been to the pubs, he's talked to the people, he's found out about the people who are buried. And I thought, I want to do that. And off I went. And my mother was a doctor, and she used to say to me, are you mad in the head? Would you ever leave the dead alone? And I'd say, they put up stones for a reason. And before she died, she used to worry that I'd have my phone with me in case I'd fall into a graveyard. Because everything I did it on my own, by myself, with nary a person around me. In 2005, I talked to the heritage officer for County Laois, and she thought I was wonderful. No, I don't know who it was, actually, I don't remember that. But whoever it was thought I was wonderful and talked to me about the idea of me being on a graveyard committee for the county. That all disappeared. Anyway, last Tuesday, I went to, is it Killermo or Kylermo, John? I say Kylermo, my friends say Killermo. I'd heard that the canon wanted Killermo transcribed, and I said, I did it. And I went off to hear what the people there had to say, thinking I would be one of many, and I could stand in the background and not say Dickie Boo. And I walked into the modern Killermo and met John, and then he knew it was me, and we got to talking, and I went off with him, and I learned so much. And earlier on today, I said to people here, after John talked, that the one thing he did not emphasize was the importance of the torch. It's not just any torch that you need when you go near a gravestone. It's exactly the kind of one he talked about, because on the second day we only had one torch, and I went home and got one that I thought was good, and it didn't even shine up one letter. And when John used it, I stood back thinking like, holy moly, why didn't I know about this all those years ago? And I can tell you, I'm going to go off and buy a torch, John, and I'm going to trot back to all the graveyards where I couldn't read stones, and I'm going to see what I can read, right? Now, outside of that, what I really want to talk about today is the difference between what I did in the beginning, then what I did when I got a camera, and what I see now. And yes, okay, I should have overheads, but this was all spur-of-the-moment thing I decided on last Tuesday or Wednesday after being in Kylermoe with John. When we were there was a woman there, and she said she was going to do Atana. Now, Atana is a parish or a village. On one side of the river, it's in County Laois, and on the other side of the river, it's in County Kilkenny. The church is in County Laois, and I've done the church. Of course I have. But I said, I've done Atana. Now, what the important thing when I say I've done somewhere is not that I don't think it should be done again. It's that I've done it, and only Lord knows what I managed to read that you will not read now. Because if I go to Ahabo, where John was in Ahabo, you were in Ahabo in 2011 or 2012. I gave John a transcription, a copy of my transcription for Ahabo, which I had done in 1996. And on my paper, I write down that the stones were almost impossible to read. And if I compare it to what John's group found in Ahabo, I have at least 6 transcriptions which were not found in 2011 or 2012. If I go to Bordwell, which I live around the corner from Bordwell, and when I first began doing this, there were 3 graveyards I hit. I hadn't a clue what I was doing. I had pen and paper. I'd go in and I'd read as best I could. I'd go home and I'd type it up. I'd go back and I'd read it again. I'd go home and I'd correct what I did. I'd go back again. I was like this, and it took ages before I was really happy that I had actually read everything perfectly and I had checked everything perfectly. So we'll take Bordwell, where I was in 1996 or 1998. Find my bit of paper here where I wrote it down. In that, if I go look at the transcriptions I made of Bordwell back in 1996, in 2006, with my first digital camera, a little one smaller than the one you use, I went and I photographed gravestones. And there are gravestones that I could read, that I can put on my camera, on my computer now, and I can read the gravestone in 2006. And I've been back in the same graveyard in the last 2 months, photographing stones as part of a different project, doing things differently than the way I did it before. And there are stones there that I could read in 2006 that I can't read now. And nobody realizes that the deterioration is happening at the rate it is happening. If I look, in 1996 or 1998, I read stones when I was standing there with my bit of paper. In 2006, 10 years or 8 or 10 years later, I went back and I photographed stones, and we'll say I could still read half the stones I was able to read in 1996. And now, do my sums, 2006 to 2014, that's 6 years, no, 8 years, isn't it? 8 years later, I can't read the stones now. And the cameras I have today, they're not the little camera that I had before. They are, I call one my mammy camera and one my daddy camera, because they're big cameras and they take big photographs. Even they can't read these stones. And this is something that nobody, you see, first of all, nobody ever knows of me or that I've done the work that I've done. Very few people know about me. And the work is there and it's not going anywhere and it's going to stay on the internet. I've indexed every single stone too. I currently have something like 200,000 photographs on the website, right? Everything is indexed, but nobody goes back to a graveyard again and again and is able to see the differences between that time and this time. And how do we tell people that this is actually such important work? How do we make sure that Historic Graves keeps getting funding? How do we make sure, look at how popular it is now. Back in 1996, when I was doing I'd drive from Dublin down to Laois, I'd drive all over the place, and I'd pelt it back to Dublin, and I had children. I had to get other people to mind them for me. And at the time I was looking for funding. There was no funding. I didn't know where to go. But now I know about this deterioration, and like, I could keep rambling on about it, but it's getting it through to everybody that things are getting as bad as they are. You know, and I was never as organised as John. After my 2 days in Kylermo, I'll be different. I'll do it differently. But it is literally this situation. It is that graveyards are popular now. Everybody seems to be transcribing them. And people are doing it, and they haven't got a clue what they're doing. They really don't. Any of you who's been in a graveyard, you'll know that you've stood beside a stone and you've read a stone, whereas somebody else with you can't read what you're reading. Have any of you been in that situation? And you know, I've had my sister standing beside me in Auchmacart in Laois, and I've read out something that was, you know, wonderful words off a stone, and she's standing beside me and she goes, I can't make out a word of it. And how do we teach people, or how do you get people? You can't just let ordinary Joe Soaps go off and think that they're going to read the stones, because they aren't really. If I didn't know about the torch trick after all these years that I've been at it, and it takes John now to come along and show it to me, who else stands a chance? Okay, see, very short little talk. I decided just to make it so tough, because when people are talking all the time, you forget half the words. And I think I've said the important thing. Just that.
Thank you very much.
Very quickly too.
Very important.